Hi, I'm Sen and welcome to this video on understanding the anatomy of HTML links. This is the first video in a little mini series on the anchor tag itself as well as navigation bars as a whole. In this particular video we are going to be zooming in on that anchor tag and more importantly the most commonly used attribute, the HREF attribute. So let's run the intro reel and learn how to do it. Right, now if you've watched any of my videos, at least the ones I've done in the last few months, you'll know there's always a bit of housekeeping. If you've seen it a million times and you want to jump straight to the action, please jump to the timestamp you can see on the screen right now, or look in the chapters in the description and find the one that suits you best. Now that's been said, if you are new to web design, and if you're watching the video, I'm pretty sure you probably are, then in this video we are going to be doing a lot of challenges. We're going to be going through a lot of different files, and if you want to follow along, and I strongly recommend that you do, please click the link in the description to download the site files. It doesn't cost you anything, it's all free, no sign up, no issues, just download it from the cloud storage. Of course you don't have to, but it just makes your life easier if you do. And again, if you are new to web design and all this stuff, then you may also want to have a look at my Getting Started series of videos, which is showing up right now. The reason why you want to look at that is that it will show you how to download and install the applications that I use in this very video, which is Visual Studio Code and the web server Laragon. And you can also, again, look at that video series and see how to download my SendPen application suites, which again are completely free, which will also include those applications rather than downloading them separately. With this being said, I should point out that we do have some server-side code being run towards the end of this video, so you will need a web server to do that. Now, if you've already got access to a web server, absolutely fantastic, don't worry about it. But if you don't and you do want to follow along, again, I do recommend that you at least download Laragon so that you can actually do these files. Of course, you can just watch the video and understand it. That's also absolutely fine. As you probably all know, what most people call a HTML link is in fact what is called an anchor tag. It is the guts to any navigation bar, and it's the only way we can actually navigate from page to page in a website gracefully. The anchor tag is made up essentially of three parts. We have the opening meta tag, which is this section here, and that normally houses, again, the HREF attribute that we're going to be going into more detail in this video. Then at the end of it, we have the closing tag, and the opening and closing meta tags together actually create the HTML element. And in the middle, we have what is called the source. And each HTML element has at least a letter or a series of letters to represent it. The anchor tag is brought to you by the letter A. Although I should point out it is a lowercase a, not the capital A we get here. And please, no copyright strikes, this is fair use. Since we're not really going to be talking about a source in this video, it's probably worth just talking about it now and getting it out of the way. This area here, as I said before, it's called the source, apparently from a website which I can't find anymore. I used to call it the link description because essentially it is the part of the link that people see on the web page. It's what they click. Having a description of where that link's going to take them seems like a good idea to me. It should also be pointed out that the source does not actually have to be text. Quite often it is. In fact, more often than not it is, but it doesn't have to be. It can in fact be an image, a video, a whole host of HTML elements like div tags and section elements, and or a combination of all of them. Basically, if it is valid HTML, it can go in as the source. Just make sure that people clicking on a link know exactly where you are taking them. Since most of the magic is done with the opening tag, we might as well go and look at that in more detail now. As we've said, the anchor tag starts with the letter A, and next to it we have the destination attribute, the hypertext reference. That's what the HREF stands for, hypertext reference. And it comes with an equal sign. And as you can see, we've basically got a name value pairing system here. And it is this value in the HREF that we're going to spend our time looking at and trying different things in. You see, it can be many things, including what we call a relative or an absolute link. Relative links are by far the most common and actually look like the one we can see on the screen right now. But just for reference, this is what an absolute link will look like. As you can see, it is a web address that you would type into your browser to go to the website straight away. The address should be identical, in fact. So let's go back to our relative link now, just for a quick comparison in case you're still a bit unsure. So the best way to think about this is that an absolute address is if someone asks you where the post office is, and then you give them the physical address as if you're going to write them a letter. And the relative address is if you say, right, from where you are right now, this is how you get there. It's given the directions. So we've said this is a relative link. What does that really mean? We've talked about it is in relation to where this file is. So let's have a look at this in the actual editing suite in Visual Studio Code. So here we are in Visual Studio Code with a myriad of files and folders that we talked about before. And here we have links1.html and we have the about.html. Now it might be a bit hard to see, but if we watch me trying to close all these different folders, we can see that the about HTML is in the same folder as the basic link. And if you look at the address up here, you can see basic link HTML, and we go down to links, it's straight to linked HTML. Whereas if I go into a folder and click on me, we can see it's a folder me.html. So we can see they're in the same folder. And that is what this relative link shows. That about.html is in the same folder as our basic link.html. So let's just see what this looks like on an actual page itself. And here we have that link. So again, the A tag with the href and about.html, the source or destination description, and the closing A tag. The BI here is just to create a new line, so all my links are on different lines. And of course, for this to go the other way, we can just repeat the process on the about.html. So here we are on about.html, and here is the link back to basic link.html. So what we can do is to save both these files and actually see if they work on the browser. So here we have the basic link page opened in the live server. As you can see, I've just enlarged it to make it easier for us to be able to see it. And we've got the link here to About Us. And we click on it, and you can see we do go to about.html with the link to go back to basic. And we click on that, and we can see we're at basic link. And we can keep doing this all day, every day, and it'll work no problem. And we've talked about this before, and the reason why this works so nice and easily is because both files are in the same folder. So the question arises is, how do we link pages using the relative link notation or the relative address notation to pages which are in different folders? Sometimes it'd be parent folders, sometimes it'd be child folders, and in fact they could both be in completely different folders and children of another folder. How do we do those links? Well, if the file is in a child folder, in other words, it is in a next level down from the current folder, all we have to do is to add the folder name first. So we use the folder name followed by / and then the file name. And we can keep doing this depending how many levels down we need to go, but it's still the same idea. Again, this is how the link will look in real life. So we have the folder and the file name, and this is in basic link, so we can see it here, and we can see that if we go into a folder we have the me.html there, so we can see how that relationship works. And like I said, if we go into deeper folders we can just do the same thing, a folder, b folder, c folder, and so on and so forth. So going down our folder levels is quite easy, but how do we actually go up a level? Well, that's actually quite easy as well. For each folder level we need to go up, we use 2 periods and /, so ... and each ... represents going up a level. So here this says go up 1 folder level, and you should find a file called basiclink.html, although actually this won't be right because there should be a hyphen based on my file names, but you know, don't punish me for that. So again, let's have a look at what this should look like in the actual file. And here we have it. So we're using ... and go to basiclink.html, and of course just a message so that we know what this link is taking us for. So we can see we're in me.html, we're going up the A folder, so into the site folder. So you can see that here we are in me.html. It's a child of the A folder. So the ... takes us up past the A folder into the site folder, and then in here we should see basiclink.html. So again, since we've got these pages, let's see if these links work properly. And here's the page again. So we go into the About Me, and you can see we've gone down to a folder, me.html, and we click back to basic link, and you can see we're going back up to basic link.html. So that going down a folder and going up a folder works fine. As I said before, we can go down as many folders as we like and back up to as many folders as we like as well. So as I said at the start of this video, there's a bundle of mini little challenges, and this is your first challenge. So this is what I'm going to want you to do. If we open up the folder structure a little bit, we see we got A folder, B folder, C folder. What I want you to do is to create links from C HTML to B HTML and me HTML, and also to basic link.html. Then I also want you to create links from me HTML and B HTML back down to C HTML. So hopefully this helps a little bit. I know it's still not perfect, but it should be good enough. So from C to B to me and basic link, and then from me and B down to C HTML, and just create standard links to them. Okay, so pause the video because you're going to see the answer coming up in 3, 2, 1. So this is the C HTML file. So you can see we're going up one folder from C to B. We have to go up 2 folders to go from C to me. And then we have to go up 3 folder levels to get to basic link. So from C folder to B folder to A folder to the site folder, and then to basic link. Here we are in b.html. So in order to go into C HTML, remember we have to go down from the B folder to the C folder. So we're going to C folder and then c.html. And then finally, we've got the me.html file. And so going from me.html, we have to go into the B folder and then into the C folder in order to find the c.html. So we can see the 2 directions that we've gone there. Now, even with this very simple little layout that we've done, the one thing you might have noticed that going down folder levels tend to be quite straightforward and easy, as it's quite nice or quite simple to be able to navigate down the individual folders. However, when we are coming back up, this can be a bit tedious, and it's very easy to get the wrong number of folders that you have to go up, because it's only ... We're not talking about the actual folders that we're doing. And depending on how deep our folder structure goes, like for example in my one here, I go all the way down to the E folder. That is quite a long number of ... that we have to put in. Can be a bit tedious, and like I say, can make some mistakes. So what you should be asking yourself is there an easier way to do this? The answer, my good man, is yes, there is. It's called the root shortcut. However, showing you this, I have to warn you, there is danger ahead. Now, we're not talking about being attacked by a colony of huge, cavernous, mechanical ants, kind of dangerous, but you know, just a little bit like kind of cutting your finger with safety scissors. Dangerous type of thing, but you know, still dangerous. So what is this root shortcut? I'm so glad you've asked me. The root shortcut is actually putting a / at the start of the HREF address. Okay, doing this actually says go to the root of the website and start from there. It is truly as simple as that. However, as I said, there is a caveat. There are issues with this because we have to understand what the term root means, and it can mean different things on different systems. So when we use the term root, we're talking about the utmost folder from where the websites are being hosted from. Now in Visual Studio Code, as you can see, site here is classed as my root folder, as it is the utmost folder in my website. So here I am in c.html, so we already know we're several folders down, and we've got a link using the traditional method using ... as well as using the root reference. So as I was saying before, if we first of all do this one using live server. Okay, so we're in live server mode. First we'll use basic link there, we can see it works. Now if I use back to basic link using absolute, that also works. However, if we close these ones down and we go back to the Laragon version, I'll just zoom in for you. And so again, I'll find it. So here we are using Laragon. And now if I, again, basic link, that works fine. But now when I use trying to absolute, we see we get a cannot be found because you can see it's going to an address where it isn't. As you can see, it needs to be going back to this address here. And so this is why you've got to be careful with using a root. To be fair, most web servers will be properly configured to your website, so it shouldn't be an issue. But it is something you need to be careful of, especially if you're, in a test environment, that the root may not link to what you think it is. So please be careful with that. So far, every link we have made takes us to a different web page. And so far, when that page loads, it loads from the top of the page. But the web links don't have to just link to the top of the page. We can use the links to go to a specific part of that page, even parts of the same page. The only thing we need to do for this to work is an element with an ID attached to it. When we want to link to that ID, we link the href in a link uses the pound symbol, which is more commonly referred to as the hash symbol. Thanks a lot, Twitter. So let's see this in action by starting with links1.html. So here we are in links1.html, and you can see we have plenty of divs with IDs. Okay, so ID 2, 3, 4, or A1, 2, 3, 4, as well as A0. Okay, and you can see we've got some classes, and these classes are all linked to a CSS file, which basically says we're going to make each area basically half of the height of the browser, so we get some distance with a little bit of padding being applied to them as well. So what we're going to do is create a link from the A0 area, have it linked to the A4 area. And again, we're just going to open this up so we can actually see what this page is going to look like first. So here we are. Now we'll zoom out a bit because we don't need to be as much. So here's area 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we want to create a link that when we click on it, takes us down to this section of the page. As we've already said, we're using IDs here. So the way that we do this is fairly straightforward. As I said, we just use the pound sign in front of the ID for the link to work, which means it will look something like this. Nice and simple. See, pound A4, which matches up with that ID. In case you're wondering, this doesn't work with classes at all. It only works with IDs. So again, as always, we're going to save this and see what it looks like in the browser. And we see we've got the link now, and we click on it, and boom, there we go into area 4. So a really quick little mini challenge for you. I want you to create the code in area 4 to link it back up to area 0. So as always, pause this video because the answer is coming up in 3, 2, 1, now. And again, you can see if I just get this to match up, it is the identical structure, href with the pound sign A0 to match the ID there. And again, the text that we're going to click on. If we save this, because we're using live server already, we'll just go back to the page and it's already there, and we click on it back to 0. And you can see that works absolutely perfect for us. So the next question is, can we combine this area with the page link? And the answer is absolutely. All we need to do is to do a normal link to the page, and then we add the ID to the end of it. So let's have a look at what we could do here. In links2.html, we have an area called A5. Notice that I'm basically using the same IDs and areas on different pages. That's absolutely fine, as long as there's not the same ID on the same page. So I've got area 5 here, or ID of A5 in links 2. And what I'm going to do is a link from that from the top of links 1. And so the code will look like this. And here it is. So again, you can see it's the links2.html and then the pound A5 to links2 A5. And again, quick save and a view. So here we are in links1.html. We click on link to A5 from links 2 or to links 2. And as you can see, it's showing up here. Now, the reason why this isn't at the top of the page is because this is as far as the web page goes. So as this page continued on, we know we had some more sections. This would actually move to the top, but it's moved to the highest part that this particular link can go to. Well, since this is nice and simple, it's time for you again to have another challenge. So this is what we want you to do. From links2.html, create links to area A5 into links3.html. Now, links3.html is inside the My Folder one. Okay, so you need to go to section A5 in links 3. Also from links2.html, and in section A1 in particular, we'll need to create links to area A2 and A4 in links1.html. And finally, in links3.html, we want you to create links from area 2, so from this area here, to area 4 in links 1 and in area 5 of links2.html. Again, if it sounds a bit confusing, hopefully this diagram will help you. And so here we have it. So from links to, from section A1 of links2.html, we want to link to sections A2 and A4 in links1.html. So that's 2 different links. And then to A5 in links3.html. And then in links3.html, we want to link from section A2 to section A5 in links2.html. And again from section 2 to section A4 in links1.html. So again, pause the video because the answer will be coming up in 3, 2, 1 now. So this is the code that we need in links2.html. You can see we're going to links1.html #A2, links1.html #A4, and then we're going down into the My folder to get to links3 and into section 5. In links3.html, you can see we've got to go up a folder both times to go out of the My folder into the root. Absolutely, you could have also just done the / if you wanted to as well. And again, we'll see links1.html #4 or #A4, and then to links2 missed out the A there, #A5. And that was all of the code that we needed to do. Now, what you may not have realized is that really using these #A numbers or #anything is actually an example of sending data between the pages. So with that in mind, you might be asking yourself, is there a way to send more meaningful or useful data between different web pages using web links? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. We have been using the URL as a way of sending data via the GET method since HTML version 1 in 1990, yep, for over 30 years. In fact, the thumbnail of this YouTube video that you're watching right now uses the same address method. Go ahead, check the address. You see it's very similar to what I'm about to show you. Now, obviously, I don't know the exact address of this video on YouTube because I'm still recording it and YouTube hasn't assigned it an address yet. However, I can still show you a link from one of my other videos. And that looks like this one here. And YouTube uses a very similar trick used by many websites, including most, if not all, of the e-commerce ones. So let us break this address down a little bit. This bit in red, I'm pretty sure you agree, is a standard web address. What you may have noticed if you're being keen-eyed is that there is no page name at the end here. And that is because it is using a standard rule in web servers, which is if you're given an address and a folder, or just a folder within an address like we have here, but no file name has been given, then the web server is instructed to go through the contents of the folder to try and find a file that matches a certain rule. So there are some default file names that it is looking for. And one of the most common one happens to be index.php or home.html. And in fact, the address is a shorthand for this here. Now, I'm not 100% sure if YouTube does use PHP or not. What I can tell you is that this address actually works. It could be they're just using mod rewrites to fix issues caused by idiots like me who like to experiment a bit. But this is now a much similar looking web address that you are familiar of seeing. It is, however, the next bit is where it gets interesting. You see, this question mark is like a precursor. It tells the web server that data is about to follow. And the next bit here, this V equals, is really 2 parts of a 3-parter. You see, the V is a variable name. I can assume here that this is short for video. And then the equals sign does 2 jobs. It tells us first that the variable name has finished and that what is to the right hand side of this is going to be the value, which is this bit here. And we can assume that this is in fact the file name given by YouTube for one of my videos. And of course, you can use this in any way you like for your own sites. You don't have to use V, you can use entire words, in fact, even sentences for your variable names, as well, of course, whatever the value is. Now, you may well be asking me, well, okay, Zane, this is a great idea, but what if I've got more than one variable? Is it possible for me to send multiple pieces of data across? And the answer is yes, you can, my good men, and it is extremely easy to do so. All you need to do is to add a ampersand, which is the and sign, and then add your next name value pair being separated by the equal sign. And in this case here, again on YouTube, it does allow it. It allows us to set the start time of a video. So here, T, I'm assuming is time, and 920S is 920 seconds. So if you type this into your browser, and you're more than welcome to do so, it'll take you to one of my videos, and it'll start it at 15 minutes and 20 seconds in. Because if you haven't worked it out, 920 seconds is 15 minutes and 20 seconds. So is there a limit to this? Well, yes, but not really. The maximum length of any URL is 2048 characters, and that is quite a lot. Let's be honest with it. 2048 digits is a lot. So technically there is a limit, but in reality, not really. However, do be aware that obviously because this is in the address bar, any values which you send using this method is visible by other people. So people who are walking by your machine can see your monitor, they'll be able to read that data. And in fact, if someone is being a bit naughty on the Wi-Fi and reading packets being sent, they'll also be able to pick up that data as it is part of the address. Which means that this method of sending data is not good for sensitive information such as usernames and passwords, even though that's actually what we're going to do in a moment. So please be aware of that you can definitely use this to send data, but please only send non-sensitive information. However, as always, there's a caveat here, and that is that even though you can send the data using HTML or any other type of link, but it is generally a HTML link, a HTML page cannot receive this data. You see, the information being sent needs to be processed on the server, which means that you do require server-side code for it to run, such as PHP, ASP, Node, Dino, Ruby on Rails, or anything else like that. And that is a bit of a shame, but that is how life is sometimes. So any type of page can actually send the data, but only certain type of pages, server-side pages, can receive the data. And this brings me back to what I told you at the start of this video, which is that you need to make sure you have a web server available so that you can actually do this part of the video. I strongly recommend Laragon. Again, like all the stuff I tell you about here, I make 0 pennies from this. I'm not associated with Laragon. I just think it's a really good system. So if you don't have a web server really to work with, then obviously just watch the video. If you do have the web server software, then it might be a good idea to follow along and actually do the code as well. So let us now go and have a look at the code that we're going to be using in order to receive our data. So here we have a page called data.php. Okay, it's a very simple page. It's just got a few lines in it, and at the top here we have a bit of PHP which is actually getting the information from the GET request. So this method that we're using, where we are putting the variable names and values into the web address, is known as a GET request, and it actually puts it into what's called an array. And then what we do in PHP is that we can grab that array and we can extract the values from it, and this is exactly what we're doing. So here we've got a variable called name, which we are retrieving from the name pair name in the GET array, and the same for food. Then when we come down here, you can see that we are reusing those values. So again, we've got $name, okay, where it will tell me whatever is being held here, and $food, which will tell us whatever's been saved here. Now, the important thing to understand is that this bit here must match this bit here, just like this one here matches this one here. These, on the other hand, must match the variable names that is in the web address. So for example, in the one that we saw before on YouTube, this would be V and T for an example. And so you get an idea of this. We are now going to use one of our pages and send data to this page. And here is that link. So we can see again that we're using data.php, and then we've got the question mark, and then we have the first variable name. Remember that name matches name here. And then we can see we're sending the value Fred. And then we've got the next variable, which is food, which again matches food there. And we're sending it the value toffee. So let's see if this works. And I said before, we have to do this using the web server. So I'm using Laragon. So I've got this running on the Laragon web server. And this is the link I'm going to do, send some data to data.php. And I click on that and we see welcome Fred. And saying your favorite food is toffee. So you can see that the values that we sent in that link have been used here and here, just like magic. And now we come on to the final little test for you. Okay, and this is a rather complex one, so you better pay attention. So inside of D folder, we have a page called data2.php. And here you can see that we have the two variable names, user and password, and they get reused down here for our message. So what your job is in links1.html, at the top here, doesn't really matter where you do it to be honest, I want you to create a link to data2.php and in such a way that you both send the data for username and password and that you actually have the page move to section A5. Now to be fair to you, we haven't done both of them together in this video, and you are going to have to experiment to try and work out which way works, because there are two ways you could try this, and one way will work and one way won't. So go off and experiment, pause this video because the answer is coming out in 3, 2, 1 now. So here we have it. It's a rather long link. So again, start with the AHREF, and then we have to go into A folder, B folder, C folder, D folder, then the page name, so data2.php. Then we pass the values, so question mark, user equals eats, and password equals bananas. Then finally, we have the area of the page that we want to move to. Now, to me, this is slightly counterintuitive. I would have thought it would be in data2.php #A5 question mark user equals seats and password equals banana, but that is not the case. The variables go in first and then the area goes in second. And again, to prove that this works, we shall save this. So here we are using the web server. Here we have the link to the greatest test, and we click on that and you see we've gone down to area A5 with the username and password data, and we can see it has moved it down. And again, this is the data2 page, so we can see that there, and again the links one that we use for it. So despite this video only actually covering just the HREF, it's been quite a long video, at least for me, and like I say, we've only really covered the basic layout of the anchor tag as well as the HREF attribute. And what I would say to you is that because we've covered so much, please use these files now just to practice with and make sure you understand this from top to bottom, because even though it's the HREF, we have covered quite a bit, and it's very important you understand this all properly. But my job here is done. So as always, thank you for staying with me all the way. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to my channel. It really does mean the world to me. If you want to ask me anything, or did I make a mistake, anything else you think I could have covered, then please whack it in the comments section, as I do read every one and I will respond to you. See you guys next time. I'm Zen, signing off.